Hello and welcome back to the Way podcast. My name is Izzy and I'm also joined by another co-host,
Zach. What up?
What up? And today we also have another special guest with us,
Ooh.
Luke. Round of applause.
What's up, guys? Wow, thank you.
And today we're going to be diving into Luke's testimony. How fun. Any initial questions before we get into the actual big questions? I have a question. Your last name's Thornton.
It is.
Are you related to the chocolate of Thornton'S?
Maybe.
Wait, really?
No way. I mean, I don't actually know what that is, but no way.
Oh.
I was going to leave you.
Your first name is Luke. Are you related to anyone from Star Wars? Like Luke Skywalker.
I can be if you want me to be. I'm not sure.
Right, well, there we go. That's
initial question's done.
Yeah, I'm not
question's
sure how
done.
to react to that, to be honest, but it's
Now
a bit of a rogue.
let's get into the actual podcast. Let's go. Hello, I'm just interrupting the podcast to say thanks for listening and I hope you're enjoying. But we would love that if you're watching on YouTube to give us a like and a subscribe. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, then why don't you give us a follow and a little rating? Because our mission is to share the good news of Jesus with every young person online. And you doing that really helps make that possible. But let's get back to the episode. So Luke, you were not always a Christian, were you?
Nope.
So a lot of your story is that you were an atheist into a Christian. But before we get into the details of that, can you tell us a bit about your upbringing? What was little Luke like?
Yeah, little Luke. I was quite chubby as a baby, so that was the very little
Very
Luke.
little Luke.
Yeah, that soon changed. But so I was born into like a secular home. My parents and immediate family, our neighborhood, that kind of thing where I grew up was very secular as well. So essentially no framework for faith or no religious experiences or anything like that, to be honest. So that was in Yorkshire, which is in England, and the north of the UK, or England. And that was kind of like where I was born, I guess.
Yeah. So when was your first encounter with anything religious? Like when were you aware that religion was a thing?
Yeah, well, one of my grandparents goes to church, so there was that, but there was no real interaction with that. That was more like, by the way, when I was with them, I went to church the other day, so it wasn't like I was actually there with them. And then some other family members have other like faiths, and then might have they talked about it, things like that. But we're talking like this is like quite. Not many interactions, to be honest. This is over the span of until I was a teenager kind of thing. So very few. Generally speaking, it was like just believe what you want to believe. Really, parents weren't particularly pressuring me and you've got to believe this or believe that. They shared what they believed, and other than that, it was just do what you want to do, I guess.
When they didn't believe in any like higher situation.
Nope, not whatsoever. No, I think it's a good question. I think they're more like not really. They're more like agnosticism, so like not too sure. Maybe there is, but I just want to live a good life and something like that. So it wasn't really, I believe in this creator or anything like that. Or it wasn't like New Age. It was just more nothing really, to be honest. Yeah.
And then from chatting before, you were definitely curious about the topic of faith. So when did that come about? When did you realize that you were curious about debating and all that good stuff?
So essentially, I think it was more activated in school. So like when I was becoming like a teenager, early teens, I'm going to secondary school, and in classes like religious studies, and when friends are talking about what they believe, I guess, and that was when I was really starting to engage with these ideas. Because obviously people start to claim things, right? Like I believe in this, and I believe in that, and then suddenly I'm like, oh well, these are like competing narratives or stories, and then which one am I? And I didn't really know, so I'm like, right, what about this? What about that? Then it was more time to engage with those ideas and those people's beliefs and lives, and seeing how they interact with that as well. So because everyone's ultimately trying to claim something, I guess. And then I was like, not too sure, but which one do I believe? And so very curious about what that meant for them, and then obviously what that meant for me as well.
And how did you go about like being curious about it?
So it was a lot of questions. Talking to people, why do you believe this? If you're Christian, for example, you believe that God created the universe? Then do you read the Bible? Do you go to church? And all these kind of questions. And if somebody was like, I'm a Christian, but then they don't do those things, I was like, all right, why is that? If God's this literally created the entire universe, then why do you not like read the book, kind of thing? So it was always something which I really like struggled with, I guess. Like, why you believe this, but then you don't believe that? And then if, for example, someone was like, oh yeah, I'm a Christian on the census kind of thing, but not in my actual life, then I was like, well, why do you say that? So for me, it was like, if I'm say I'm a Christian, I want to be a Christian. Or if I'm an atheist, I want to live like an atheist, kind of thing. So I'm always trying to be like congruent and aligning our lives with what we still believe, I guess. But yeah, like, even in like school, for example, in like RE, my RE teacher was a priest as well. So on the weekend, he was in the church, and then in the classroom, he was talking about different faiths, and obviously he could speak with authority about Christianity, and he was great. So he used to have lots of like back and forth.
Interesting.
And then stay after class a lot of time to like chat with him. It was just so interesting. So looking back as a Christian,
spoilers.
Yeah, spoiler alert, drop that. He was that was his kind of like ministry, I guess, and that was the way he was witnessing to these young people. And so yeah, for him, the character that he like gave out, and it was brilliant. And but yeah, so I was got on really well with him, even though I disagreed with him quite strongly, obviously, as an atheist, about that. It was more like, to be honest, I was like, why do you believe this? And then what the answers he was giving weren't necessarily like going in, and I wasn't really accepting them. So there's something else that I was trying to like search for, I guess. So it's hard to look, it's hard to know where exactly I was at, but that's kind of the gist of it, I guess.
What was like the main thing as you were an atheist talking to Christians that you were like catching them out on? Was it that inconsistency of like claiming to believe but not doing anything about it? Or were there any other things where you were like, oh, when I'm chatting to a Christian, they never know how to answer this question, and I can just catch them out so easily and kind of like disprove them?
Yeah, it was more about the is their life aligned with what they believe or what their religion claims to believe, kind of thing.
Wow.
So yeah, if they were like
That's
saying this and then doing that, I'm like, what? Like literally the God of the universe is looking at you, all like seeing you in this, and then you're doing this. And that used to really confuse me, especially when it was big things. So yeah, I used to really like.
That's so interesting.
It wasn't very like, I used to really like probe with that, but like, why this? Why? Like, I really believe this, and why are you doing that?
I once read a quote that was by a prominent, I think it was a Hindu author that was quoted in this book that I was reading, where he said that every Hindu in the world would be a Christian if Christians lived as Jesus lived, because they actually find it quite compelling, but they just don't see the fruit of it in Christianity and in the church, which I thought was really interesting. And now hearing that was one of the biggest things that you saw as was like incongruent in the Christian life. Like, I often think if we actually just lived what we believed or claimed to believe, it might make a whole world of a difference.
Probably.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, big time. And then to add to that as well, like, in terms of my inside of mind kind of thing, I was always thinking like, I can't see God. Whereas, if God's real, then why can't I see God in terms of like physically in the world? And then some things just like, like a lot of people like atheists at the time and scientists kind of thing were claiming we don't know how the universe began. And as well, so then I was like putting it on that as well. If we don't know, then and I'm taking their word for it, I guess. And then how can these people who are claiming to know, like, how do they know then? So it was always like, I was kind of claiming, pinning some things on that as well, like uncertainty around that. And and I think particularly when you've not got any like literally pretty much zero good Christian witnesses in your life,
right?
It's just such an alien concept.
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
when I speak to people now who are Christians and they've got Christian parents and all this kind of things, like that's not my experience whatsoever. It was like literally zero. I mean, the people I interact with who were Christians were like 70 plus, and it was like that was pretty much it.
Not very relatable.
Yeah, literally at all. And as we'll probably come into later, that once I started to find people who were Christians living life, that kind of helped to change things.
And then for you, like in your heart, I guess, like how did you view the world? Like, were you content of like not knowing if there's a higher power or whatever, or do you feel like you were missing something, or did you feel like I don't need this? Like, how were you?
Yeah, interesting. So I think I really like loved life. I think life's great. I'm just going back, thinking where I was at the time. Like, love life. I thought I can have a go life this way and be like grateful, or go the other way and like just be like questioning all this other kind of thing. And yeah, for me, I kind of chose that. So I've always been a lot into like personal development and that kind of thing. So when hearing about optimism and how that can help, I was like, oh, why not? Then I might as well adopt one of these like strategies or thought process. I guess I thought, well, this might as well go this round. It ends up being better, I guess. So yeah, I kind of saw the world in as a good way as I can, I guess. I could at the time. However, after really reflecting on some things, like if I'm an atheist, then do I have free will? Is that even on the table? Like, I'm not really too sure. If I'm being honest, at the time I was like, well, if the universe is just all material, and then the only reason I'm here is because of a prior event, and that event's here, a prior event to that, and so on, then it's all determined. And that was kind of like, oh man, that's not good. I don't really like that, even though I feel as though I've got free will, and that really seems pretty clear. But if I'm relating to the science, so to speak, then that was really challenging for me. And then like morality as well, can that be real if there's no external force? Or like that was really challenging actually, because like, well, no matter what I do, I can believe or think that something is good or bad, but is it actually? It's just my opinion, and who's to say this is right, this is wrong, and all that kind of thing. So I always wanted to be like, align or be congruent, I guess, like I said before. So yeah, that was quite a big thing. And then I kind of thought, well, if there's no like purpose as well, then no matter what I do, be it live a good life or not so good life, in the end, it doesn't really matter. And I remember there's one point I was in the kitchen of a house where I used to live. I remember all this just like hitting me really hard, and I was like, man, this is wild. If this is true, then what's the point? And yeah, for a moment, that really struck me, to be honest. And that then went on for a little while. I don't think you can like live in that space very long. It was more like an intellectual realization, and then an emotional one as well, to be honest. And but then I decided to get on with my life, I guess, and just carry on. But yeah, it was definitely a big thing. I'm not sure if I answered the question, but I'm kind of going up on one here.
No.
Yeah.
And then what age are you for all of this? Are you just a teen, or like how long did this go on for, of like you not really, like you being interested in religion and like chatting to people and asking them questions and challenging them, but not like when did it hit the point of you realizing that something was about to change in your
so probably like early teenager, or like 13, something like that, when you kind of think about more of these things. And that lasted probably until maybe like early 20s, something like that. And then I kind of like left after talking to so many people about this at university as well, like asking people. I used to live with a few Christians as well at the time, not intentionally, just they happened to be. And so asking them about it. And after a while, it just gets a bit boring, to be honest, because you just talk about the same old thing, and it can be quite confrontational sometimes when you're asking people about faith and all this kind of stuff. And so after a while, it's like, you know what, this isn't always very fruitful. And sometimes it's great, but sometimes not everybody wants to defend why they believe what they believe. So I kind of like left it for a little bit. And there was a period of a couple of years where just like got on with my life and just did whatever, really. And then to answer your question in terms of like when did that kind of change, I guess. So I was basically, after a few years of leaving it alone, for some reason like that fire, I guess, was reignited, and interest was came back into my life around curiosity around the topic of God, and I started watching more like podcasts and videos and things like that. And essentially, I was watching a debate between an atheist, so like my guy, and then a Christian who was like, the other guy, and they were debating like morality and God and this kind of thing, and it's about 2 hours long, and by the end of it, I kind of realized or came to the conclusion that the Christian like, won the debate, and that
That's-
like
that's
blew my
crazy.
mind.
Wasn't
Who,
crazy.
do you remember who it was?
I can
Who were
share
the?
that. So the atheist, he was called Sam Harris. He's quite like a famous atheist from the New Atheist movement, like with Richard Dawkins and these kind of people, Christopher Hitchens, who's passed away now, and Daniel Dennett. And the Christian is a guy called William Lane Craig, who's like a philosopher, theologian, and apologist. And he did a really good job, I guess, of defending his faith and then also deconstructing the other guy's positions around various things on morality, basically. And yeah, by the end of it, I was like, "What? Like, what's going on?" Like my position on my side is kind of like not come out very well here, and that really like caused like a crack in my belief system, and it opened up like the way I kind of see it is it made it intellectually permissible to then explore some of these ideas, which before I always thought were a bit silly, like, you know, Christians are just afraid of death and, you know, they need a purpose and all this kind of thing. It's like tradition from many years ago and generations, which had helped to build up the West, I guess. But was it really true? Not too sure about that. And so a lot of times when you have that like worldview, when people are trying to present things to you as well, you kind of like, you have like a force field against that, and you kind of just anything that comes in your eye, whatever, it's silly faith Christian stuff. And but this really like caused me to think and then look more deeply into what this guy was presenting in terms of his ideas and all the rest of it. And then I started doing like a deeper dive on those particular ideas and arguments.
Do you remember like what they were? Like what were the key points that really challenged your thinking?
Yeah, so a big one was on like the moral question. So this guy was talking about like the moral landscape and how, you know, there's different peaks and all this kind of thing. And then when the Christian, Dr. Craig, showed that, well, if that's true, then people can have all different beliefs, good and bad and whatever, and then can flourish, but that might be at the detriment to other people and so on and so forth. I won't go too much into it, but basically it showed that didn't really work. And so that wasn't great. And even though I didn't like fully adopt that position, it just really like kind of made it
Challenged
look
it,
a bit.
yeah.
Yeah, and then I was like, okay, well, that clearly doesn't work. And then another one was on the creation of the universe as well, and how he demonstrated how there's good reasons to believe that the universe had a cause and a creator. And when you've been told so many times and heard that, you know, we're not sure and it could be anything and it's maybe it keeps, you know, coming into existence and then going back in again and all this kind of thing, or it's a multiverse or there's this or there's that. But it's basically it's massive uncertainty really. And then he kind of demonstrated that, well, actually, there seems to be like good reasons to believe that there is a creator and it was a moment in time and by a personal or powerful creator, basically. I was like, all right, okay, well, that's interesting. And that really brought like, so right, I didn't start to believe it right then, but it was more that then made me look into what these reasons were. And then after like reading books on these things and watching more videos and asking questions, yeah, then that really started to kind of make sense. And I was like, man, maybe God is real. And but I didn't want to jump in because I thought if I just jump in, it's maybe too like of a fast reaction, and then I don't know if it will be true or not. Maybe it's just an emotional reaction. I didn't want to just like believe it because it was convenient or whatever. And yeah, so I really had to like dig deep into like what these things mean, and what they're trying to present, I guess, in terms of their worldview and what that meant for me, I guess. But what it meant for me in terms of my life didn't really matter too much. I was like, is it true?
Right.
And if it's true, that's all that matters. Because if it's true, I'll believe it basically, or I'll go along that path. And that was where, because I've always wanted to align myself with truth. Basically, I've always been seeking the truth. And yeah, and then as I started to like try and like pull it apart, I like couldn't. I was like, oh man, this is really standing up to the test. And yeah, so that was pretty wild. And then that led to
Wow.
then
And then-
believing that a God can exist.
Wow. And then when did you move from just kind of understanding to opening yourself to experience and encounter? What was like, was there a point where you just like decided, okay, I'm just going to try going to church, or like, I'm going to talk to a Christian, to ask them what was that step into going beyond just understanding?
Yeah, good question, man. So around this time when I was just looking at all these ideas and I started to think that God is possible, there was I was in this like co-working space. So that's essentially an environment where lots of people from different businesses and work in a shared space. And there was somebody in there who was a Christian. And I used to get into chats with them every now and then. And it was really interesting because they kept talking about this guy. This guy was called Jesus. And I was like, why do you keep talking about Jesus? I was like, what's going on? I was like, I guess I know he is, but why do you keep talking about it all the time? And so we got into like some really like long conversations, like 1-2 hour conversations about Jesus and faith and all this kind of thing. And after a while, basically they were like, look, you're very curious, got a lot of questions. It'd be great if you can come to an alpha course with me. And I was like, yeah.
Come on.
What's that? Because I had no idea what this meant. And then it was, it's a place where you can ask to be questions and in the church. And I was like, okay, here we go. I was like, right, yeah, basically. And so I was like, it's like a setup kind of thing. And anyway, so I was like, all right, I'll entertain it. And yeah, so basically I went to an alpha course. And so I went to one. And then I went to the first session. And I was a bit unsure. I was like, not too sure. It's good. It's nice. People are great. On and so on. But yeah, that's it. The food was great. And but then I thought, this isn't right at the moment. However, after that I kind of couldn't get it out of my head for a while. So I was still wrestling with these ideas. And I was like, that's a really good place to do this. And to think about these things and talk about it. And I think as well, just to add, well, in terms of like, prior to that point, I've always like been like in my own mind or like doing things myself. And then I kind of realized that, doing things with other people is a good thing to figure things out. So anyway, I ended up going to the next alpha course at the church. And yeah, it was great. It was like transformative, really. It was my favorite night of the week. I just loved it. I used to go there and talk to people about faith, and just like, even the people who were, there was atheist, Christians, Muslims, and all different faiths. And I used to really enjoy just like going back and forth and then watching the films and then talk about those. And yeah, then over the course of that time, it was like my heart was like softening to the idea of Jesus. Because to that point, all I got to was God, a God. Then after that, it's like, okay, well, which God?
Yeah.
Or
Right.
which faith,
Right.
I guess. Because I was looking at like anything. I was looking at like mosques, synagogues, churches. I was like, whichever's true, God, I'll go that way. I was like, if it's true, then if it's inconvenient, I'll have to do it. And yeah, and then on the Alpha course, they're presenting the case for Jesus and the historicity of the resurrection, the fact that he came to earth and he was here, and all the rest of it. And yeah, it just seemed like really compelling. And then after doing other research on the side and looking into it myself, combined with all of that, yeah, this was very convincing. And in terms of that moment, I guess, so the one of the lead pastors at the church at the time challenged me basically towards the end. Thought, Luke, a lot of the big questions you've asked have been answered, and
Sorted.
yeah, this is it. And I appreciate you've still got more questions. That's great. And they were like, I've still got questions. I've been doing this for a long time, and but I'd love to invite you to say yes, to becoming a Christian. I was like, all right, okay, all right, maybe. And then so I thought about it, and I was like, yeah, all right. So it was really like, at the right moment. And then, yeah, that was it. Said yes there and then after, like a short prayer with them. And yeah, that was it. Like transformed. It was never the same. So I woke up the day after, like stopped swearing overnight. So that desire completely just disappeared from me. That was wild. That was really like interesting experience, because that wasn't like a like a intellectual thing. It was just
Yeah.
like that desire disappeared, and now I'm suddenly not wanting to do that anymore. So that was, yeah, really fascinating, to be honest. And then from there it was just a process of, right, well, now I'm this new guy, I guess, and now I've got to, or I want to, should I say, I want to figure this out and go on this journey. So out of desire to really want to explore this new identity, it was getting involved in church, and then I loved it. And then I joined like a life group, home group, small group, whatever we call it. And I was like, this is amazing. We get to meet like during the week, and these people are all like my friends and like brothers and sisters in Christ, and we talk about all these amazing things. We pray together. I was like, this is so good. How have I missed on this all my life? And honestly, even to this day, when I go to life group, I'm like, man, this is amazing. Like, what an incredible what a incredible thing to do and to experience. And there's all this fruit kind of started to emerge, I guess. And particularly when living a very dry spiritual life prior to that, this was just so uplifting. And this was just, even now, I'll sometimes wake up, I'm like, man, this is nuts. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? When I'm doing various things, and I'm like, man, like what would my former self say to me today? It'd be nuts. And so I used to like laugh at like Christians and things. And I've not really told this before, but I was at my one of my friends' weddings, and they were Christians, and I was an atheist at the time. And me and my other friends went with them. Obviously, it's all mates, so yeah, of course we're gonna be there. It was great. And but they were Christians, and they were singing all these songs there, but like as in like proper like classic worship music, basically. And at the time, I had no exposure to that whatsoever. And they were like, like getting really passionate about this, and we were literally crying with laughter. Like, these guys are nuts. They're like saying they love Jesus, and now it's like I'm one of them now. And I'm like, man, this is just wild. What a journey! It's gone from like one side to the other, and now when I look back, I'm like, this is crazy. Like, what God can do is just incredible. And so that was the more of the. So after I said yes to that, then that was the like head to the heart thing, because I was definitely missing the heart stuff in round faith, and and then it's been a case of just like trying to do both, I guess, since then.
I loved what you said about like the importance of community, to actually not to keep it in your head, but to talk about things. Because I think even once you do say yes to being a Christian, it's not like you suddenly have all the answers.
Yeah.
And some things we don't know the answer to. And I think I would love to ask you a bit about, is someone that wants to read everything and know everything and understand what is true. There are some things that there's an element of faith. Like, it wouldn't be faith if we knew all the answers.
Yeah.
So how do you, for your mind, how do you do that? How do you do the faith element where you don't know the answers?
Man, that's a really good question. I think like even just day to day, like thinking, is this what I should be doing? Is this honoring God? Is this being obedient? So there's that. Like, I don't sometimes know, like sometimes I think it's spirit led, but is it? Or is it me? So I'm always like I'm not questioning every movement or everything, but like sometimes I think about that. I'm like, man, is this what I really need to be doing? So just searching out, is this truly like my purpose of what I should be doing? That's quite a big one. But then when sometimes put that to the test kind of thing, and then there's this fruit and doors are opening. Like, oh, great, okay, that was maybe a decision which was aligned with God. That's great. And then asking for wisdom, I guess, as well from other people. So I'm always asking other people. I've been accountable to the people, asking for advice and wisdom. I think, ultimately, as the body of Christ kind of thing, is asking them, and like, what do you think? Because we can't see our own life objectively. So it's trying to just do my best in that, really. And then been around with the Christians, so some things are like caught, and then other things are taught. So it's like trying to be in the right environments, I guess, to do that. But I mean, like, every day is like a experience of trust, of faith, and but then I think the good thing about when you've done like a deep dive on a lot of the big things, you can really like rest on that as a really solid foundation. So if you do get any tests kind of things, like, well, I could then think back to that. Well, oh well, there's good reasons for believing in this. It's not just I didn't just believe it because I thought it was going to be good or whatever. He's like, no, I believe it's true as well. So.
Well, I suppose it's I think they said this on one of the Alpha videos actually, where it's like if we've got so much evidence for a lot of it to be true, then we need to trust that it's all true. Like if there's enough evidence of like the stuff of Jesus that we can literally see this historic proof. I don't remember if you remember the actual phrasing that's in the Alpha series. I'm pretty sure it's in it. But like if there's enough evidence, then we need to trust that there's like we can trust what's given to us.
Right.
But it is hard because we do have doubts and we do have thoughts and we do like, even when we do believe it and say that yes, it doesn't mean you suddenly have no questions and your life like looks completely different.
What do you do now?
What do you do
now that you're a Christian? Like, has it changed your whole life, or just how you do the things that you already did? Does that make sense? Like, has it influenced your career in any way?
Or, well,
like,
it changed everything really.
Really?
Well, literally, like the why is completely different.
Yeah.
I try to, live out like kingdom values now as well. So like in business and work and this kind of thing, always trying to make sure that, living in a way which like honors and glorifies God, even in the day to day. And it's kind of, like I think it's Romans 12, that being that like living sacrifice and that our bodies being that. So we've got like sung worship at the church, worship also is or everyday life or interactions and otherwise. And it's honoring that as well. So I think the why is huge. And then even saying no to certain things now. So if like this contradicts scripture or it's not, this isn't a wise move in terms of like, in terms of as a Christian, then can't do that. So lots of things have changed. Lots of things are in a big way, to be honest. In personal life, work life, I guess.
Well, I suppose it's also about like part of your frustrations early on when you were talking to Christians, which is like you believe this, but your life looks no different.
Yeah.
So actually, I'm glad that your life does look different.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
You're now part of the good argument, if that makes sense.
Like I'll try our best.
But you're actively choosing to live out what you believe, which means when people do come your way, that I guess, because you're very into telling people about Jesus now and evangelism and all that stuff. So when people come to your way, you can confidently be like, this is what I believe and this is how I'm living it out. And I'd love to ask you a bit about your passion for evangelism and telling people about Jesus. Like how do you now go about that? Especially knowing your journey of like what you've gone through in your testimony, maybe understanding people's brains of when they're against it or wanting to fight against it. Like how are you now evangelizing?
Yeah, I think it comes out of just that understanding of how like graceful God has been to me, and then out of that, then it's just trying to share that and just realizing as well like what's at stake in terms of our eternal relationship with God. Like that's pretty big.
Yeah.
So when I really think about it, I'm like, man, that's just such a amount of gravity there is to that, and it's huge. And I remember a long time ago, even when I was an atheist, like there was these two guys. They're like, look, if you aren't going out on the streets to talk about your faith, it's like you're robbing people of the opportunity to do that. And they use that as an argument against people of faith. And I was like, I thought I agreed with that. I was like, you know what? Like they're kind of right. Like if you hold on to this like precious, the gospel, then and you keep it to yourself, then that's you're like depriving people of this opportunity ultimately. And I really like and since then I've believed that, and then obviously since changing my identity and my worldview, then I wanted to like live that out, I guess. And we all can do that, whether it's in conversations or whether it's more relational. You don't have to do it on the streets and things necessarily, but and then it's out of that. I just want to kind of like interact and engage with people. And some days I'm like, I love it. And I'm like, let's go out. I can't wait to get out and chat to people. Some days it's much more like, oh man, I'm not really feeling this.
Right.
And I've just got to really just like, just go through it and just like once you get warmed up, it's a lot easier. But sometimes I'm not necessarily in the mood to do it. It's more like a discipline. It's like, right, I need to do this. Exactly, amen. So it's like more like, okay, I need to do this. And just trying to do that. That's what I sense anyway. God has been calling me to do. So that's why I'm doing it basically. To try and be obedient to that. And then that what that brings out as well, like who knows if that's something down the line, God's like, right, the reason they did this is because of that. And then that sets up for preparation kind of thing. Who knows? But yeah. And it's actually quite exciting as well. So in terms of like how God's made me, I kind of like really enjoy it. So once I'm doing it, I'm like, this is cool. This is so fun.
Right.
Especially after like a really interesting day and we've all been out and, we're talking about the stories and how the interactions we've done and praying for people. Yeah, it's a real gift, I think. It's amazing. It's so like life-giving. And yeah, and again, I think it's true. I think it's real. And I want to bring that and try and be, through his strength, like salt and light in the dark, basically. Yeah.
What would you say to someone who doesn't value the sharing of their faith openly with others? Because I feel like I know a lot of people who believe in Jesus and come to church, and I guess it's that quote, which is preach the gospel and if necessary use words. But I think often it is necessary to use words.
Jesus used words.
Jesus used words. Like, what would you say to someone who's
Good
like,
enough,
"Oh,
mate.
I'm just gonna, live as a Christian and mind my own business, and if someone asks me about it, I might share it, but I'm not gonna go out of my way." What would you say to shift that perspective that I think is probably quite prevalent?
Yeah. Well,
right
what
now?
is the Great Commission?
Mm.
Right? We're here to know God and to make him known. We're not here to just like keep it to ourselves, right? So yeah, I mean, first and foremost, it's all relationship with God, and then out of that, outpouring of that, then it's to share it. And this is the part. This is the co-partnering with God to then go to the rest of the world, or whether it's close by or far away, to then to do that. And that's literally we're commanded to do that. So yeah, it's super important. And also like as a challenge as well, I think that there's a lot of people, particularly in the West, who just live like really comfortable lives, and I think we need to like lay that down on the cross, really, like lay down comfort, because ultimately, when we stand before God as well, like, can we really say, oh, well, I was comfortable there, so I didn't want to do it because it was uncomfortable. Like, good luck with that. Like, if you want to say that to God, then good luck. But yeah, I think, and yeah, I think we don't want to do it because we've been like, we're scared to not do it. I think just because if we just realize what we have received, then yeah, let's get out there and talk to people. It doesn't have to be on the streets or all that kind of thing. But if you can do it at your workplace, with your family, in your friends, all it can be is like a simple practical. You could say, oh yeah, I went to church this weekend. If somebody's interested, they go, oh, what does that look like? I didn't think you were a Christian or whatever. Just start small and just work from there. Just be encouraged. And yeah, I think, I'm not sure if that's helpful, but yeah, that's some thoughts on
100%.
anyway.
But I think even seeing in your life, like how God has placed Christians actually throughout your time. So from your teacher to housemates to even the guy at the co-working space and others, I'm sure as well. It's like actually encourage us. How can we be those people in the lives of those that don't believe? Like, because I think also for you were very curious and asking lots of questions and encouraging debates. And and I'm sure the guy at the co-working space, I bet you he was praying for you.
It was a girl, actually.
Oh, girl.
Yeah,
love that.
Shout out to
Sarah.
Sarah.
I thought you said guy earlier.
No, I kept ambiguous there. So yeah.
But I bet she was praying for you. I bet she was like actually like properly invested in you. And so how can we best go about that doesn't like force you to try and open a conversation you're not ready with, but like encourage us. How can we be that?
I love that. So I think just thinking back to so she was very like lived like a different life, just just something different about her. And I was like, what is that? I think that was Holy Spirit and just being different. And I think as Christians we're called to live like as like a contrast community, not necessarily for the sake of it, but because if we stand for this, then that is different to the world. And I think the witness of many people, just like at Alpha, when I met all these Christians who were just nice people, and they were like inquisitive and they were curious and they wanted to like move me along, I guess, and just honestly to be there, just to hear what I had to say, and not necessarily like just change my opinion or my view or anything. And I think our character, it's what's that quote? It's something like our character is the only Bible some of us ever read, kind of thing. I think
Yeah.
that's really good. I think that's probably the first thing. Just like be aware of how we're coming across. Sometimes it might be bold as well. It might mean like calling something out or standing for something. If there's injustice in front of you, might mean taking a stand. That can be really like striking sometimes. I've seen that a few times. Like, man, that's really powerful. And then when you really like in the workplace or otherwise, asking questions as well, being curious. Like if your friends an atheist, or maybe people listening to this are an atheist, like just asking questions. I think that's a really good place to start as well. Like if you're a Christian, you're talking to your non-believer friends, like why do you not believe? And then going from there and seeing what they think to that and trying to respond to that in a way which you sense is the right way, I guess. I think the big thing is character is a big one. And I think also like if there's any atheists or people who are unsure that are listening to this, I probably encourage them to like be open to suspending their current belief system, which is not believing in God. Just be open to that. Doesn't mean you have to change your view. Just be open to suspend it, perhaps, and then look into these things about who is Jesus? Is there good evidence to suggest that he did come? Why did people die for the gospel, this message, when they didn't have to? They could have just gone, no, it's not true, but they didn't. They died. It's like there's so many powerful pieces of evidence and all the rest of it, and today there's all things happening. I think be open to that, and even getting around people is a good thing to do as well. If you're an unbeliever and you're open to these things, finding churches, going on an alpha course, there's so many things we can do. I just think just to start with one thing, though, just like, right, okay, what can I do? And then try and move closer to that. So, for me, it was just like this, the alpha course or talking to people, that really worked. That's the way I'm kind of made, I guess. I wanted to go down that path. And, hopefully maybe some of those things might be for other people as well. But ultimately, it's just, I think, if you've been open to the idea of who Jesus is and why he came, I think that's probably quite a good start.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I have 2 final very quick fire questions. Do you have a quick fire question that you'd like to sandwich between my quick fire questions?
No, but I can try and think of one.
Okay, my first quick fire question. What's your favourite Bible verse? Or one that's been a key one in your testimony?
Probably living sacrifice. I think that's what on my mind quite a lot of them been living in. I think it's Romans 12, I think.
12:1.
Basically living as a
Nerd. I'm kidding.
living sacrifice. I think that's just good because it's just every day. It's like there's in the little moments. It's because people talk a lot about like worship ultimately, and I think it's just trying to worship God in a way we can, whether it's in day-to-day life, conversations, exercise, studying, whatever. There's all these different things we can worship God. We can worship God in so many different ways.
Thank you so much
Thank you
for
guys
joining us on the podcast.
Wait, what was your second?
Don't worry, I'm coming to it.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, man.
Thank you so much for giving us your time and telling us a bit about your story. I encourage anyone watching, look at Alpha if you're interested about asking some questions and, comment away, do all that stuff. What emoji should people drop in the comments? Fire.
Flames.
Should we do it together?
Flamethrower.
I don't know what that means.
Do you know what a flamethrower is?
No.
It's a gun that shoots flames.
No, let's not do that. Let's
So
do flames.
you do the flames
Wow.
and I'll do the thrower.
Okay.
Flamethrower. Yeah, that's sick.
Okay. Thanks for
What way
joining
to
us. Join us next time. At the way, like, comment, subscribe. Find him as well. Nice.